Hello, thanks for joining me for this week's Quick Fix yoga class. We're going to start straight away. Come to standing at the front of your mat and inhale your arms up towards the sky. Slightly bending the knees, start to hinge forward from the hips, bringing your hands to the floor or to your shins wherever you can reach. We're just going to play around with flattening our back, looking out straight, flattening the spine, hands to the shins, to the thighs, and exhale, folding over again. You can experiment placing your hands on the floor, wherever you'd like to place them. We're just going to inhale, lengthen out the back, and exhale, release, making sure to keep those knees bent. You can start to experiment with straightening out your legs if that feels comfortable, otherwise staying with your bent knees. We're just going to do a few more of these. Really flattening your back, really opening your chest forwards, warming up through every vertebrae, using your breath for each movement. So now wherever you are, just start to slightly walk through the knees, straightening one knee and then the other, loosening up through the calves, through the thighs. After you've done that a couple of times, just coming back to your little flow, looking forward, flattening the back, exhaling, releasing down. Okay, and next time you look forward, just step back into a wide leg downward dog, bringing your feet to the edges of the mat, straightening one leg, bending the other, pushing through the palms of the hands and pushing back into the heels, keeping the hips and the sits bones up nice and high, and pulling the scapula, the shoulder blades together. And on your next inhale, coming up nice and tall on those toes, hips high towards the ceiling, really stretching through the back and through the legs, and keeping that height in the hips, starting to push the heels down towards the floor. You might not touch the floor, that's absolutely fine. It's the action that we're looking for. Okay, and start to walk your feet back into a normal downward dog, about hip distance apart, treading through the feet. Come back high onto the toes and just start to rotate your feet one side to the other. So now we're stretching through the ribs, through the hips, through the side waist. Being careful not to dump the weight into your shoulders, pushing back. And releasing that, coming into traditional downward dog. We're going to lift the right leg up towards the sky before on an exhale, bringing it forward into pigeon pose. Right knee to the right wrist, right foot and ankle to the left wrist, left leg straight out behind you. So you can stay upright like this, just taking a few breaths, keeping the legs and feet nice and active, releasing down into that front hip, propping yourself up on your elbows or a block, whatever you have to hand. Make sure that you're keeping your feet nice and active, so your front right foot, you're keeping your toes pulled towards yourself, very flexed, active foot, just protecting that right knee. You can make a pillow out of your hands and just rest your head down, doing your best to keep your hips even, pulling your stomach in and up, and breathing deeply, relaxing into the shape. Very slowly start to unravel, bringing yourself more upright into a seated pigeon pose. You might feel a bit stiff after this, so go slowly. We're going to do a slight twist here, so just start by extending your left arm back, making lots of space between the fingers, reaching it back towards your left foot. If you can bend that left leg, try and grab hold of the foot and pull it back in towards yourself. We're going for a really strong quad stretch here. If you can't reach the foot, that's absolutely fine, just keep reaching back. You can also rotate your shoulder like I'm doing here, trying to bring your shoulder round to the front. This is a really deep stretch, so make sure this is part of your practice before doing it. Otherwise, you can always use a strap or just simply reach back towards the back foot. Release and come back into downward dog, treading through the feet, loosening out again through the hips. Using the same leg, right leg up towards the sky. I'm going to step it back, right foot to the outside of the right hand. So now we're in lizard pose, keeping that back leg nice and long, rocking backwards and forwards. And then dropping that back knee towards the floor. You can always use some padding here, a blanket or a pillow if this is uncomfortable on the knee. Bringing your hands to the floor. If this is uncomfortable, grab some blocks or books before taking your right hand onto your right knee and pushing the knee out, just opening the hip and the groin, looking up towards the sky. Remembering to take it easy, don't push yourself too far. Exhale, hands back down towards the floor. Now stay here, or if you have the space, you can start to bring your elbows, forearms down towards the floor. You can always rock onto the outside of the right foot to give yourself a little bit more space through that hip. Just working on slowing down your breath, releasing through the body. Very slowly push yourself back up onto your hands if you came down onto your elbows. Going to twist in the opposite direction. So start by reaching your right hand backwards and grabbing hold of your left foot if you have the space, pushing the foot away and opening your chest. Remembering that you can always go into the previous pose, take some of the pressure off. Exhale, release and come back to downward dog. Treading lightly through the feet, shaking out the head and neck. And again, bring the feet nice and wide as the mat. Just treading through one foot and then the other, bending the knee deeply. It's a really great palate cleanser between poses. Coming up high on the toes, keeping the hips high and releasing the heels down. Start to release and lift the left leg up towards the sky. We're going to have to repeat all of that on the other side now. Left leg through into pigeon pose, knee towards left hand, foot towards right hand. Keeping the feet active. Keeping your chest upright to begin with. If you're comfortable and have the space, start to come down onto your elbows. You can maybe even make a pillow out of your hands and release down, trying to keep the hips nice and even. Trying to direct your breath to any tough points, any uncomfortable areas you might be having in your hips, making sure you're not clenching your jaw. Let your body release down to the floor, letting your forehead rest down. Now getting ready for that twist, we're going to come back up to seated, starting to reach your right arm back, staying here if this feels good, or bending your right leg, grabbing hold of your foot, either with your hand or with a strap or towel. Pull the foot in towards you, rotate the shoulder if you have the space, opening your chest and bringing it towards the front of the mat. Remember, this is very intense, so coming out of it if you're feeling any pain. Starting to release, bringing your hands back to the floor, tucking your toes and coming back into downward dog. Again, releasing, stretching through the feet, treading through the knees. Opening your left leg up towards the sky, stepping the foot to the outside of the left hand. So to begin with, just rocking back and forward on that back foot, lizard pose, remembering to grab your blocks or books. Before we bring that back knee to the floor, remembering to pad it with a towel or some pillows or a blanket if your knee is uncomfortable. Stay like this, or if you want to go further into the stretch, open the left knee out to the side, bringing the left hand to the knee, opening the chest, rotating and looking towards the sky, pushing the knee out. Try to make sure that you're not collapsing into your right shoulder, pulling the shoulder blades together, and coming back to center, staying on your hands or coming down to your forearms. Release your head and neck, making sure your gaze is nice and gentle and cool. You're not holding any tension in your face. Your shoulders are released and your feet are active. Getting ready for our next twist. So stay where you are, or if you want to participate in the twist, come onto your hands. Open your left arm behind you towards your foot and grab hold of the foot if you can. Pushing the foot away and letting that open your chest. Looking towards the sky, rocking on the outside of the left foot. And exhale, start to release that, tuck the toes, back to downward dog. Your hips should feel nice and warm now. Look forward towards the top of the mat and walk or jump through to a seated position. I'm going to face you now. Just going to do a brief stretch for our hips. Coming into butterfly pose, feet together, holding onto the big toes, letting the knees open out to the side, opening the chest on an inhale, and as you exhale, rock forward from the hips. So you want to try and keep your chest as open as possible at this point. If you find that you're rounding your back a lot while you're bending forwards, then I want you to come to a straighter seated position and just work on sitting up really straight through that lower back. Release and come to a simple cross-legged position. Thank you so much for joining me. Bring your hands to fists on your lower abdomen and bend forward, sealing your practice. I hope to see you again next week. Namaste.